that.
Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on misplacedstraws.com, where music comes to life. And my guest today is the singer, bassist, and songwriter for one of the most enduring bands to grow out of the post-punk era. The Church recently released their 26th record, an ambitious, beautiful concept piece called the Hypnagogue. Please welcome from The Church, Steve Kilbey. Welcome, Steve.
Hello, everybody. Here I am.
Well, let's begin with the band lineup. It's been 5 years since the last record, and you've had a shift in personnel during that time. What's the current lineup of The Church?
It's me, and it's Timothy Poles, and it's Ian Hogue, and it's Jeffrey Kane, and it's Ashley Naylor.
Mm-hmm. And I've always felt that the church, the hallmarks of The Church, I mean, first and foremost was your voice, but also the unique guitar interplay and tone that the band always had. Your original guitarist, Marty Wilson Piper, left the band some time ago, but now with Peter Kopp's gone, were you worried at all that although the band's sound has evolved over the years, changing both guitarists may lose a bit of what the core of The Church was?
I'm gambling that we can incorporate what the core of The Church was and also move ahead. That would be the ideal situation. But to try and keep that idea that the thing that the two guitars did together, that's still part of the mission statement, always will be and always was. So, people quit, and then I just have a choice. Do I have to quit because this guy quit? And I answer just always is no. I'm just going to keep going. I'm not stopping because other people stop. I'm keeping going right till the end. It's my band. It always was, and sort of like they were all valuable and amazing players. Everybody who played in the band, they all brought something to the band, and in their spirit, and we move on, incorporating all the good things they did and moving on with new players who want to sort of pick up the mantle and go into the fray.
Mm-hmm. And now onto the record itself, the Hypnagogue. I mentioned it's a conceptual record. What's the story behind it? What is the Hypnagogue?
It's a story. There is no other story than what I'm going to say. In the future, there's a guy called Eros Zeta, and he has a band called the Perfume Guitars. He lives in Antarctica, and he's sort of run out of songwriting steam. And one day hears that a woman across the other side of the world in Korea has invented this machine called the Hypnagogue. And he travels there and uses it. And it has disastrous consequences for everybody. That's really it. That is the story right there. It's a very loose story. It's a very open story. And the songs, sometimes the songs are like, for example, one song is he's in a cab between his hotel and the Hypnagogue, and a song comes on the radio. Well, we play that. The Church played that song that comes on the radio. So it's sort of like minutiae of his. It's like tiny little snapshots of the overall story, little moments in time that occur in the arc of this story. There are little musical snapshots, and that's what the Church sort of have done. You don't have to have the story. You don't have to be interested in the story. The songs stand up anyway. So there you go.
And after, 40 plus years and 25 records, why now for a concept album? Did you have this idea floating around? Was it sort of an exercise to challenge your writing? What led to this?
As I was making the album, I began to realize it could be a concept album. It sort of had it had a feeling of like some of the songs seemed to have, to me, they seemed to all, there was something flowing through it. I didn't have to look very hard. It's like, I don't know where ideas come from. This name just came to me, that the female protagonist should be called Sun Kim Jong, and she should be Korean, and she should be a scientist, and she's invented this thing called the Hypnagogue. And then now that I sort of feel like I'm in a universe where this has happened, I need a protagonist. And then this guy appeals to me, Eros Zeta, this kind of wasted Percy Shelley, sort of Byronic David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust pop star who lives 30 years in the future. And he sort of goes and uses this machine, like doesn't think it through. And the machine is it is a machine and it is a process, but it's also part occult, and it's part magic, and it's part drug, and it's part some sort of tantric stuff. It's all kinds of things at once, this thing that sort of to get this music out of you. And it's sort of like quite a it's quite a thing. So as we're working on the record, it just, I'm writing the songs. The more the songs came, the more the story kind of came to me, how it could all be. And I just enjoyed it. And it was just, there is a, I mean, now looking at it, there is a kind of a moral to the story, like, that if you sort of do unusual or artificial, if you try and boost things within yourself artificially with artificial.
Oh, are you there?
Dog,
Oh, there you go. I lost you for a minute.
I'd be there.
Yeah. And
What's that?
I lost you for a minute there. It looks like you froze for a quick
Okay,
second, but
okay.
you're back now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the things I've loved about your writing over the years is that your lyrics have always evoked a story. I mean, they've always kind of created this visual landscape for the listener, kind of a 5 or 6 minute short film in your head while you're listening to the song. So it doesn't seem like that much of a stretch to create a larger story. But was there a difficulty in expanding the story, but still making sure every song stands on its own as a church song?
Look, I just made it. Look, first of all, I'm very happy, and I loved what you just said about each song seemed like a story, and before anyway, and now it's like a much longer story. It's just when all the songs were finished, I kind of made it work. I might have a song, and I could decide a little context for that song to fit into the story, even though maybe it hadn't been written to fit into the story, or we weren't sure where it was going to go. It's a very loose and intuitive and kind of a thing where if somebody said, I have put a lot of thought into this shuffle, and I'm listening to the Hypnagogue in another order, and it's making sense to me, this is how I see things, I would go, yeah, okay. It's it's an interactive experience. It's sort of like, in the end, it's just some fun. It's just some fun. And imagine this. imagine this fucking silly bastard. He's a pop star. He goes and submits himself to this crazy, and like the future is a ramshackle, broken down, bits and pieces future. It's not a high-tech, glossy, shiny one where they've got all the bits. It's the kind of thing where, especially in Korea, this lady's cobbled this thing together. It's like really, it's not a kosher sort of thing at all. Anyway, he has a go, and it's sort of like, it blows his mind, and the songs that he writes blow people's minds, and the whole thing is like just too far out for everybody. And he ends up, as I said last night, he ends up sitting on the side of a road with nothing, going, wow, what just happened? It's sort of like, so that's really it. And it's just purely for fun, and the songs, just to give them an extra little bit of context, if you want it. There's some sort of clues on the album cover. There's some very, very slight clues about where you are at in the story.
And now, kind of taking a look back through the band's history, most people here in the US first caught on with you guys with the amazing Starfish record. You had signed a deal with Arista, who they brought you guys to the US and had you work with, Laurel Canyon legend Waddy Wachtel, which musically seems to make no sense, but it produced an all-time classic record. The follow-up, you guys were looking at like John Paul Jones, but the label's like, no, we're going back to Waddy. What were your thoughts when you first started working with him, and then when it came back for Gold Afternoon Fix?
I think he did a lot of good things. I completely put myself in his hands as an experiment, and also because I was lazy. I was just like, all right, I'll let this guy just tell me exactly how it should be. There are certain assumptions now I wished I had questioned more. But I think he did a pretty good job. We met John Paul Jones and had a really good time with him. And we had a manager who really seemed to resent the fact that when we had dinner with John Paul Jones, we were, as you can imagine, all over him like a rash, going, John Paul Jones, right? So the manager kind of resented that, and then sort of fixed it so it was sabotage, that we never really got a shot at doing it with him. And years later, I met John Paul Jones at an airport, and he said, I really wanted to do that. I said, we really wanted you to. And he was saying, well, that isn't what the information I got. So it was sort of like rigged. Anyway, we went back with Waddy. It was not so successful the second time. Eventually, and then the album after that, we worked with a great producer called Gavin McKillop, and we made, but it was too late by then. You don't get that many chances. But we made this album called Priest Equals Aura, and that was a really, really good album, like with really great production and sounds and attitude. Yeah. All right, I'm just rambling on now. Sorry.
That's it. Yeah, but it's funny. I tend to equate the Church with one of my favorite bands ever, Marillion, in that you both had kind of this burst of success fairly early on in your career that set up a loyal fan base that has allowed you as a band to evolve and grow and keep working for decades. And I think you're both bands that don't need to go out and just play the hit from 40 years ago, because you have an audience that's willing to go on a journey with you. As a songwriter, is there validation in the fact that you have grown an audience that isn't just there for the hits, but they appreciate the deeper tracks and everything that's come after?
I'm banking everything on the fact that they are going to follow me with this, because to me, this one's really important. I really think we've got something here. We've done a few shows. We've been doing a few tracks off this record. I don't know. I think we're onto something. We're gonna play the hits, and we're gonna play your favorites, and we're gonna play some new songs. And yeah, look, every time I hope it all works. I'm not. There's no guarantees.
Yeah.
There are no guarantees, not for the church. I feel like every show we play, my life's on the line. I don't still walk on there like, yeah. I still walk on there like, oh boy, I hope they're gonna like me. I do, wherever it is, no matter what the situation. I don't take it for granted. So, yeah, I hope. Look, I'm just going to say all the usual things somebody in my position is going to say, and because of that, it means it's almost meaningless. But I have to say them. The band I have now are really an incredible bunch of players. 3 guitarists who are really absolutely top-notch guitarists who know how to play the guitar. And we have some really interesting new songs. We're doing great versions of the old songs. And everybody really wants to be doing this. It's like, that's the important thing, is the willingness. So I just hope people can enjoy it, and then that's the reason for it all in the end.
And the church tours the U.S. pretty regularly. You guys will be here in the spring. I'll be catching you here in Hartford, Connecticut. Definitely looking forward to it. Now, I've spoken to a lot of bands that are based outside of the U.S., and they always talk about how with the current economics of the music business, it's almost impossible to tour America. But you guys have always seemed to make it a priority. You're here regularly. You're always promoting the record here. How do you guys make it work?
Do you know what? It's just is not my. It's just not my field of expertise. I'm sorry. I don't know how it works.
It just
I
does.
don't. I make a record and then I say, gee, like, I hope we tour America. And somebody says, okay, we work permits are approved. Be here on this date. And you go, okay. And then I turn up, and at the end, sometimes I get paid some. At the end, sometimes it's not very much at all. Every now and then it's really good. I don't fucking really know how it all works.
But I mean, for this upcoming tour, what can audience expect? And do you ever see yourself kind of playing the Hypnagogue as in its entirety? Or any surprises?
If there was a demand, if there was a demand to play the Hypnagogue in its entirety, I'm there. Until that demand exists, we are playing 6 songs off Hypnagogue, and then a really solid cross section, deep cuts and hits, like trying to be as inclusive as we possibly can, so not one person can walk out and complain. We have tried to put together 2.5 hours of music. So we hope we can give everybody a bit of what they want.
Well, like I said, I'll be catching the show here in April here in Hartford. So definitely looking forward to catching you guys live again. It's been far too long. And we've been spending some time here with Steve Kilbey of The Church. The record, it's a beautiful, just everything you want from a church record. It's called the Hypnagogue. It's out everywhere now. You guys are hitting the road coming up. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you, mate.
Yep. We'll talk soon. Bye. And we'll catch you in Hartford on stage.
Absolutely. See ya.
Bye.